years ago, two climbers reached the summit of the highest mountain in the world. We're talking about Mount Everest.
Yes, in 1953, Edmund Hillary, a New Zealander, and Tenzing Norgay, a Nepalese climber, reached the summit of Mount Everest.
Now, Richard, last year we did a podcast about the 100th anniversary of the first people reaching the South Pole.
That's right, yes.
What I don't understand is how come they got to the South Pole 100 years ago, but it wasn't until 1950s that they got to the top of Everest?
It's an interesting one because it's similar in many ways, obviously very, very cold, but obviously going to the South Pole, you're just walking flat most of the time. You're going to Everest, you've got to go up, and of course when you go higher there is no air, so that makes it extremely difficult to breathe, the lack of oxygen. I think it's colder, and obviously the climbing hazards, very, very dangerous.
And they had so many more people as well, Richard. There were 400 people who took part in that 1953 expedition to get to those two people.
So who were the 400?
So 360 of them were porters. And then they have the Sherpa guides and the climbers, yeah. So perhaps going to the South Pole was more of an endurance, whereas actually more dangerous to go to Everest?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And the other interesting thing, of course, Richard, is this week, how things have changed. This week, an 80-year-old Japanese climber became the oldest conqueror of Mount Everest.
I know you can take a holiday climbing Mount Everest nowadays. I think it's 5,500 people have now climbed the mountain.
Since 1953?
Exactly.
And I think it was in 2007, right, over 600 people reached the top. And there were so many people that sometimes there's a kind of a bottleneck, a traffic jam of climbers.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? Well, because people now have oxygen and they've got all the gear and the equipment and the warm weather clothing, makes it much easier.
It's still a very dangerous thing to do, of course.
Many, many people have died over the years.
Yeah, over 200 people have died. I think they say, because you talked about the lack of oxygen and how difficult that is, from South Col, which is the last base before reaching to the top, it can take 12 hours to walk the last 1.72 kilometres.
Yeah, so you've got to be pretty fit to do it as well. And, of course, quite rich.
It's expensive, is it?
Apparently, on average, it costs £40,000 per climber.
£40,000?
Yep.
To get to the top of Mount Everest?
Yep.
My goodness. So...
I don't think that's the only reason we won't be going up Mount Everest anytime soon.
No.